Welcome to Sleepy Middle Ages. Tonight we drift across warm sands and starlit waters to explore a world where dreams mattered just as much as waking life. You settle into a modest mud brick room, the Nile breeze curling softly through a reed mat window. Lanterns flicker low. Outside, jackals cry in the distance. Inside, linen sheets whisper against your skin, woven from flax grown by hands you'll never meet. You close your eyes, but sleep here is never just sleep. This is Egypt around 1400 BCE. The world hums with divine presence. Every shadow carries a god, every whisper a potential omen. You're not simply dozing off. You're crossing a threshold between this world and what lies beyond, and you probably won't survive this era without a touch of divine protection and a firm belief in the mystical. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, what time is it where you are? And where are you listening from now? Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lie on a raised platform of clay, covered by hand-woven linen, dyed a faint brown from river silt. It's not exactly memory foam, but in a world where peasants sleep on floor mats or under open skies, this feels nearly luxurious. You run your fingers across the linen, coarsely spun, but blessed by temple priests. A few mosquitoes buzz near your ear, but the netting, a precious gauze fixed to the ceiling, keeps most of them at bay. You mutter a charm under your breath anyway, just in case. In the distance, someone's singing a lullaby or a hymn. In Egypt, it's often hard to tell the difference. Songs soothe children and praise gods in the same breath. There's no clear line between daily life and ritual, between practical comfort and spiritual security. Your room is small, but every item has purpose. A low stool where you sit to remove your sandals, a stone water jar for washing your feet, a reed fan, and maybe, if you're wealthier than most, a servant dozing just outside your door, ready to fetch cold water or chase away flies. But even if you're a scribe or artisan, you still share your room, perhaps with a spouse, a child, or an aging parent. Privacy isn't really a thing yet. Intimacy, however, is everywhere. As your eyelids grow heavy, you glance at the ceiling. It's painted blue, studded with gold stars. Not actual gold, more like crushed ochre. Still, the point remains. The heavens are always watching. Some believe Nut, the sky goddess, arches over every sleeping person, swallowing the sun each evening and giving birth to it every dawn. You sleep under her belly, beneath her twinkling limbs. A papyrus scroll lies rolled beside your headrest. It's not for reading, it's a dream log. If you see something odd tonight, a cat with wings, a crocodile that whispers your father's name, you'll record it before breakfast and bring it to the dream interpreter at the market. If he nods approvingly, maybe you'll have good luck. If he grimaces, you might want to avoid boats for a while. But for now, your body sinks into rest. The mud brick walls, still warm from the afternoon sun, radiate a gentle heat. The earth itself seems to hum with ancient memory. You shift, adjusting the linen slightly. It scratches just enough to remind you it's there. You murmur another protection charm, this one to guard your ka, your vital essence as it wanders during sleep. Egyptians believed that part of you traveled while you rested, slipping through doorways only the dead could open. It might visit a friend, or peek in on your enemies, or stumble by accident into a place it shouldn't be. Historians still argue whether these night wanderings were seen as literal or metaphorical, but to the ancient Egyptian dream and reality were far more intertwined than we allow today. You didn't have a dream, you went to it, and as the night deepens, the winds pick up outside. You can hear the rush of the Nile far away, but ever present like the pulse of a sleeping god. You're one of millions who've rested along its banks. From peasants to pharaohs, sleep is the great equalizer. Except maybe your headrest isn't inlaid with lapis lazuli. Still, for a few brief hours, it won't matter. You'll step into that shared realm where dead ancestors whisper gods, play dice with fate, and crocodiles occasionally offer advice. Just another night in ancient Egypt. You're still lying there, under the same ceiling of painted stars, but your mind has begun to float. Not fully awake, not quite dreaming yet, just hovering in that soft in-between space. The linen sheet has grown warm from your body, and the stone headrest presses gently into your neck. It's not built for comfort, not by modern standards, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to protect. You reach up to adjust it slightly, the polished limestone cool and hard against your skin. Ancient Egyptians believed that headrests didn't just support your head, they shielded it from malevolent spirits. The gods might be merciful, but the night was full of things that walked without feet and whispered without mouths. Still, let's not get ahead of ourselves. For most Egyptians, whether you were royalty or just another farmer with sand in your socks, your sleeping arrangements said a lot about who you were. If you were poor, you slept on the ground or on a woven reed mat, maybe a rolled-up cloak under your head. If you were middle class, say a successful artisan in Thebes, you'd have a low platform of wood or mud brick with a mat on top, and if you were lucky, some kind of pillow. Richer folk, though, that's where things got fancy. Beds were status symbols, carved legs shaped like lion's paws, gilded frames, ivory inlays. The kind of bed you'd half expect to purr if you stroked it. Pharaohs had beds elevated off the ground to avoid bugs and dust, with canopies overhead and attendants ready to adjust your linens if a wrinkle dared show itself. But even then, they still used the same U-shaped headrests you're lying on now. Everyone did. Because sleep wasn't about softness, it was about survival. Mainstream records, like tomb paintings and burial goods, tell us that beds were among the most prized possessions. People took them to the afterlife. Seriously, archaeologists have found more complete bed frames in tombs than most modern apartments. One quirky tidbit: some tomb beds had tiny footrests carved with spells to keep evil spirits from crawling up and licking your toes. No joke. Of course, if you were truly elite, your bed wasn't just for sleeping. It was a symbol of rebirth. The goddess Isis was often shown reviving Osiris while he lay on a special divine bed, his deathbed, yes, but also the start of his afterlife. So when you lay down at night, you weren't just getting some rest. You were mimicking the gods themselves. No pressure. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were shared by commoners or reserved mostly for priests and scribes. Did the fisherman in a reed hut really believe his headrest channeled divine protection? Or was that just something passed down from temple walls? Hard to say, but we do know this. Nearly everyone used them, and nearly everyone went to sleep with a charm or two murmured under their breath. Tonight, as you breathe slowly, the shadows on the wall begin to shift. Candlelight flickers over hieroglyphs etched into the frame of your bed. Blessings for peaceful sleep, protection from restless spirits, and a request for visions that are sweet and true. That last part matters. Dreams weren't just wild brain static in Egypt. They were messages. The gods didn't text. They didn't call. They dreamed, and you'd better be paying attention. You blink slowly, the room blurring in warm amber tones. Someone nearby snores, maybe your brother, maybe your wife. In wealthier homes, people slept in separate chambers. But for most families piled in together, privacy wasn't expected. Affection was, though. Children often slept curled against their parents or nestled beside grandparents who whispered bedtime stories about battles fought and gods transformed into animals. Even pharaohs weren't immune to bedtime storytelling. One famous tale, the tale of Sinuhe, includes a moment where the hero far from home longs for the soft linen and sturdy bed frames of Egypt. You'd think the guy was missing a luxury spa, the way he waxes poetic about sheets. You shift again, rubbing your eyes. A breeze rolls in from the narrow window, smelling of the river wet reed's clay and something faintly fishy. You don't mind. That scent means life. The Nile is life after all, and sleeping near it, lulled by its rhythms, is a privilege you're keenly aware of, because not everyone gets to sleep in peace. Out beyond the village walls, the desert creeps forward. Jackals howl. Spirits called Ach are said to wander, some friendly, some not. You've heard stories of people waking to scratches on their arms, or the soft weight of something sitting on their chest. Sleep paralysis? Maybe. Or maybe that's just what they tell themselves in the daylight. You whisper one last incantation toward the ceiling, a thank you to Bes the dwarf god, who protects sleepers, especially children. He's grotesque by design, big head lion's mane, sticking out his tongue to scare off anything that might sneak into dreams. The original nightlight, and then without realizing it, you drift. The stars on the ceiling seem to shimmer, the buzz of insects fades, your breath slows. Maybe you'll dream of a cat with human eyes, or a stairway rising into the stars. Or maybe no dreams at all, just a long, heavy blackness that feels a little too close to eternity. Whatever comes, your bed holds you. The headrest cradles your skull like a stone guardian. And somewhere beyond the walls, the Nile hums and hushes, rocking you gently into the kind of sleep only gods can decode. You're deeper now. The room is gone, the ceiling stars forgotten. Your breathing has leveled into that soft rhythm only found in true sleep. But before we drift too far into dream, let's rewind to one detail you might not have appreciated earlier. The little things that keep you safe through the night, your amulets. Yes, tucked beneath your linen, tied around your neck, or hung from the carved frame of your bed, these tiny tokens do more than accessorize your slumber. They're your night watchmen, your spiritual bouncers, your cosmic mosquito repellent. Let's start with the scarab beetle-shaped and blessed by priests. One rests near your chest, now pressed against your skin. Not the most comfortable accessory, but you've worn worse. This one's special, though. It's said to protect your heart during sleep, that vulnerable space where dreams poke and prod. Another charm, perhaps shaped like the Eye of Horus, swings lightly from the bedpost. It watches while you can't. Egyptians believed this eye. The Wedjot warded off sickness, nightmares, and even intrusive spirits who might mistake your soul for someone worth messing with. And yes, there's a netting over the bed, not just for bugs. In higher households, you'd have linen curtains or mosquito nets draped with tiny amulets sewn right into the fabric. Gold if you were pharaoh. Faience or glazed pottery if you were everybody else. These netted charms formed a kind of force field, one part folk magic, one part nightly insurance plan. It wasn't all symbolic. Mosquitoes were a real nightmare. They carried diseases and robbed people of sleep more efficiently than a chorus of jackals. So the Egyptians doubled down herbal oils, incense, and bundles of herbs like frankincense and myrrh. Not just for ceremonies, burning them kept the air clean and the bugs at bay. Plus, your room smelled like a holy day, which was a nice bonus. Now here's a fringe belief to keep you wide-eyed. Some people hung tiny papyrus scrolls with handwritten spells above their beds, not to keep spirits out, but to invite specific gods in. Imagine inviting Thoth, god of wisdom, to visit you in your dreams and whisper a solution to that oxen counting problem you couldn't solve today. It's like texting the divine except you're asleep, and the delivery confirmation comes in cryptic dream logic. Historians still argue whether every household did this, or if it was mainly scribes and priestly families who had the training to write such spells. One camp insists dream invocation was for the literate elite. The other believes even the illiterate paid for spells written by temple scribes, sort of like buying a subscription to divine Netflix. Either way, the belief ran deep. Dreams had power. They weren't fleeting nonsense, they were portals. And sleep was the gateway. You stir slightly in your linen cocoon, unaware of any of this consciously now, but your body moves like it remembers, like it agrees. Because sleep here isn't passive. It's a practice, a preparation, a ritual. You aren't alone either, not in this room, not in this belief. Picture the rest of your household, your uncle, in the next chamber, wrapped like a falafel in his cloak. Your cousin, who snores loud enough to scare off demons. Your baby niece swaddled and humming softly in her dreams. Each one resting guarded by their own amulets, wrapped in the same protective charm. And somewhere not far away in a mansion, with carved pillars and a private courtyard, a noblewoman rests under embroidered sheets. Her bed is inlaid with gold. Her charms cost more than your house, but her dreams just as vulnerable. Her fears not so different. A scorpion bite, a message from the dead, a god angry over forgotten offerings. The fears cross class. Sleep levels the playing field. And speaking of playing fields, here's an odd little detail you won't find in many textbooks. Some Egyptians believed in dream games, rituals you'd do before bed to increase the chances of having a certain kind of dream. Want to speak to your dead father? Sleep with a piece of his clothing under your pillow, hoping for a vision of the future. Eat a specific fish and whisper a chant before lying down. Want to avoid all of it? Sleep on your left side and refuse to speak after sunset. Superstitions abounded, and let's be honest, some of them sound oddly familiar. You stretch a little half awake now. The sun isn't up yet, but the stars have dimmed. You dreamt of a snake curled into a loop and eating its tail. You have no idea what it means, but you'll ask the interpreter tomorrow. For now, the protection spells did their job. You're still here, still intact, still breathing under your linen and your amulets. They're quietly humming with the energy of another safe passage through the night. The first rays of sunlight haven't touched the horizon yet, but your sleep is already thinning soft at the edges, like the veil between dreams and waking is beginning to wear. The headrest presses gently against your neck, reminding you where you are. But something else lingers. A dream, vague, slippery. A black ibis walking through reeds, speaking in your father's voice. You can't remember the words, just the way the air around it seemed to shimmer. That's probably important. You blink once, twice, then roll over carefully, because stone headrests aren't exactly forgiving. Beside your bed, on a low stool, waits a fresh scroll. You reach for a reed pen, still groggy, and try to sketch what you remember before the dream evaporates entirely. You jot black ibis, father's voice, whispering reeds, sun rising behind it. Tomorrow you'll take it to the dream interpreter in the market. He'll frown thoughtfully, run a hand through his beard, and ask you what color the ibis's eyes were. You won't know. He'll say that's fine. He'll say it means good fortune or maybe betrayal. Depends on how much copper you're carrying. See, in ancient Egypt, dreams weren't idle fantasy. They were diagnostics, tools, pathways, sometimes warnings, sometimes messages from gods, sometimes just odd fragments that left you uneasy all day. But you'd never dare ignore them, and you wouldn't be alone in that. Dream interpretation was a full-blown industry. Even in modest towns, someone always knew someone who could read dreams. You'd pay them with beer onions, a small fish, whatever you could spare, and they'd flip open a papyrus book, brush their fingers over the ink, and mutter something that sounded ancient and vaguely threatening. The most famous of these texts is the Ramesside Dream Book, discovered in Deir el Medina, a real gem. It's a kind of ancient BuzzFeed quiz for your subconscious. If you dream of drinking warm beer, expect an argument. If you dream of walking backward, good luck is coming. If you dream of losing a tooth, someone in your family will die. Classic bedtime reading. Quirky detail, some of the interpretations seem contradictory. Dreaming of lettuce, for example, can mean either abundance or infertility, depending on the direction it grows in your dream. No pressure. Historians still argue whether these dream books were truly influential for the average Egyptian or more like sacred curiosities referenced mostly by temple scribes and high-ranking priests. But when a culture builds temples, writes scrolls, and carves dreams into tomb walls, you start to believe they really did care what their subconscious had to say. And then there's the question of where these dreams come from. To the ancient Egyptian, dreams weren't internal, they were sent. Visitors, not inventions. You were a passive recipient of divine mail, whether you liked it or not. Gods like Thoth Isis, or even lesser-known figures like Serket, the scorpion goddess, because of course Egypt had one of those, were all potential night visitors. But not every dream was divine. When were tricks, mischief, spirits pretending to be gods, or worse, vengeful dead relatives who hadn't been fed enough offerings recently. You know that feeling when a dream turns sour halfway through. The air thickens. The mood sours. You wake up sweating. Egyptians had a name for that bad dreams caused by unsettled spirits. And they had spells for that too. You'd recite them into a bowl of water, then pour the water out at the threshold of your home, washing away the lingering energy. Or you'd sleep with a protective figurine under your bed, a little wooden lion or hippo carved with hieroglyphs and fierce expressions. Not exactly plushies, but close enough. And let's not forget the social side of dreaming. Imagine gathering with neighbors at the morning market, all half awake, retelling last night's visions. I dreamt of a falcon eating figs. My aunt dreamt she gave birth to a crocodile. My cousin swears a god of the dead sat on her chest and asked for cake. Dreams became community events. Shared fears, shared laughs, shared interpretations that somehow always ended in you should visit the temple just in case. You sit up now, the dream gone, but its residue clinging to your skin. You press 2 fingers to your forehead and whisper a thank you to Thoth, just in case the ibis was him. If it was you, don't want to be rude. Outside, the sun is beginning to smear the sky with pink, but you're not quite ready to rise. Not yet. The linen is still warm. The house still quiet. You lie back down just for a moment and let the silence settle. In the world you live in, dreams and daylight overlap. Sleep and waking are just different kinds of seeing. And somewhere in the half-light before morning, a part of you still walks with the ibis listening for whispers in the reeds. You doze in and out now, wrapped in warmth, a dream still echoing faintly like a drumbeat in the distance. But comfort isn't guaranteed, not here, not in ancient Egypt. Even with your carefully laid charms, your sacred headrest, your whispered prayers, sometimes there's just sand in your sheets, and there's no getting around it. Sand is everywhere. It creeps through your window slats when the desert wind howls. It crunches between your teeth if you sleep with your mouth open. It finds its way into folds of linen and between toes. You can dust your mat 12 times a day, and still by nightfall, there it is, tiny reminders that the desert is always knocking. The truth is, most people in Egypt didn't sleep in pristine silken comfort. They made do. Your mat is made of tightly woven papyrus or palm fibers, maybe softened with a thin layer of straw. It smells faintly earthy, sometimes musty if it hasn't been aired out. Bugs are a given, ants, beetles, and worse. You flick one off your leg in the dark and try not to think about how many others are nearby. Still, you're lucky. Some people sleep directly on the floor. In poorer villages, where homes are shared between humans and goats, your night might be punctuated by bleeding, shuffling hooves, or worse, hoof-to-rib contact. Yes, there are stories of people waking up with a chicken roosting on their stomach. Whether that's quirky or tragic depends entirely on how much you like chickens. And even for wealthier folk, discomfort still lurks. That high platform bed with lion paw legs. Beautiful, but it creaks. The gilded frame might gleam in the lamplight, but one poorly placed elbow and you've got a bruise for days. And don't even get started on the headrest. Your neck's still adjusting. What's more, cleanliness isn't easy. Laundering linen takes effort. Water soap made from natron or animal fat and lots of sun. In the dry heat sheets can be reused for days, even weeks. But by then, they've collected a medley of sweat dust oil and, yes, sand. You learn to ignore it or pretend it's exfoliating. Historians still argue whether the average Egyptian bathed every day or whether that was more of a temple worker thing. But everyone agrees personal grooming was serious business. Still, even the cleanest bodies attract dust. So you cope. You shake your bedding out every morning. You sweep the floor. You hang reed mats in your doorway to cut the wind. Some people scatter herbs near their bed, mint basil, even dried onion skins, both for scent and for pest control. A quirky trick. Some folks slept with feet tucked inside a second sheet to keep bugs from crawling in. Sort of like a sleep sack ancient edition. There's an old story, half myth, half metaphor about a man who tried to chase all the sand out of his home. He swept every hour, burned incense at every corner, hung charms on every wall. But in the end, the sand wore him down. Not his house, not his spirit, just his patience. The lesson: you don't fight the desert. You learn to sleep with it, and that's what you've done. You shift, now adjusting your linen, brushing a few stray grains off your belly. The actions become instinct. You'll do it half a dozen more times before sunrise, and each time you'll do it gently, not in anger, not in complaint, but with quiet resignation. The desert is in your blood after all. Why wouldn't it be in your bed? Still, it's not all irritation. There's something oddly comforting about it. The grit under your toes, the scent of warm clay, the whisper of sand against stone. It reminds you where you are, who you are. A person of the riverbanks and sun-drenched fields of reed boats and palm shade of stars that never move and winds that never stop. Even Pharaoh, in all his gold-trimmed glory, deals with sand in his sheets. You'd like to imagine he's immune, that his servants beat the linens for hours until not a speck remains. But no, the desert finds everyone, and that, oddly enough, is its own kind of equality. So you curl back in, brushing your fingers over the edge of your headrest, listening to the rustle of wind through the window. You feel the grit beneath your elbow, the scratch of linen at your shoulder. Not pleasant, but not unbearable either. This is Egypt. You sleep with sand, and you dream with gods. You're still half asleep, hovering in that syrupy, slow-waking state, where thoughts drift like silt in the Nile. But something nags at the edge of your neck. Not a fly, not a spirit, but the unyielding curve of your headrest. Again, let's talk about that for a moment. Because whoever decided that a stone block was ideal for neck support clearly never had a chiropractor, and yet here it is, your trusted nighttime companion. Smooth, cool, carved in a crescent shape to cradle the base of your skull, but with all the plush luxury of, well, a doorstop. Why would anyone, let alone an entire civilization, decide this was the pinnacle of sleep science? The answer, like most things in ancient Egypt, lies somewhere between practicality, spirituality, and superstition. The ancient Egyptian pillow, or wares, wasn't really a pillow at all. It was a headrest often made of wood ivory or stone. Some were ornately carved with images of protective gods like Bes or Taweret etched into the sides. Others were plain, passed down like heirlooms, polished smooth by generations of cradled skulls. Your head is resting on one of those, now just worn enough to be comforting, just sacred enough to feel like it's doing something important. And it is, at least according to the people who first used it. You see, in the Egyptian worldview, your head was the seat of your soul, not your heart, as romantic as that might sound. The head was where your thoughts lived, where dreams slipped in, and most crucially, where the spirit Ba could enter and exit during sleep. So keeping it elevated, that wasn't just comfort, that was defense. Sleep was a vulnerable time, not just physically, but cosmically. While you snoozed, your soul might wander, drifting through dreams, visiting ancestors, or getting a lecture from a minor fertility god about your lifestyle choices. You didn't want your soul returning to find your head squashed against a dirty mat. That would be rude and risky. Historians still debate whether headrests were strictly used during sleep or whether they were also symbolic in ritual settings. Some argue they were designed mainly for the dead, propping up mummified heads so the spirit could rise in the afterlife. But the number of worn everyday headrests found in homes suggests people actually used them, night after night, neck cramp after neck cramp. And maybe, just maybe, they weren't as uncomfortable as they sound. Once you learn to sleep on your back arms at your side, Pharaoh style, it starts to feel secure. There's something calming about having your head above your heart, your breath unhindered, your face turned gently toward the ceiling, stars painted in indigo and gold. Plus, there's that sacred geometry to it. Elevating the head symbolized rising above the world, even while asleep. You weren't just a body on a mat, you were a soul in transit. Quirky side note. Some headrests were passed down as family heirlooms. They'd be carved with names, small protective spells, or even casual graffiti. This belongs to Ka, don't touch. Imagine a sacred object with the spiritual energy of your childhood lunchbox. You shift slightly now, your neck adjusting instinctively to the hard curve beneath it. Your body's learned to adapt. In fact, you've probably forgotten what a soft pillow even feels like. If someone handed you a feather-stuffed cushion, you might assume it was for funerals. Speaking of which, those headrests made their final appearance in tombs. The same stone block you're lying on might one day travel with you into your afterlife kit, nestled between canopic jars and that awkward family portrait where everyone's facing sideways. Death in Egypt was a continuation of life. So if your neck had grown accustomed to a certain firmness, best keep that consistency going for eternity. But even with all this ritual, all this meaning, the truth is still simple. You lie back, you breathe slow, and the stone cradles your skull like the Nile cradles a papyrus boat. It's not soft, it's not cozy, but it works. Somehow it works. Outside, the breeze picks up again. You hear a camel grunt in the distance. Someone's rooster crows too early as usual. You draw your linen closer, the fabric whispering across your chest. The headrest holds you steady, as it always does. Unchanging, eternal, like time itself. And as sleep deepens again, you imagine the gods watching curious, perhaps a little amused. They use these things too. You're lying just as they did, and that makes you, for one quiet moment, feel like royalty. You're sinking now gently, deeply, into that full-bodied sleep where time loses its shape. Your breath is slow, limbs heavy, and somewhere in the folds of night, your mind begins to drift again. Images flicker, a hawk flying backward, a river that flows uphill, your grandmother offering you honey from a cup shaped like a lotus. None of it makes sense, but it feels important. And here's the thing, it probably is. Because tonight, like every night, your dreams are more than dreams. They're whispers from the divine, or so you've been raised to believe. Maybe Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, is sending messages wrapped in metaphor. Maybe Anubis is watching from the shadows, checking to see if your soul tips too far toward imbalance. Or maybe it's just your stomach reacting badly to last night's lentils. In ancient Egypt, dreams were treated with respect, curiosity, and a healthy dose of fear. You didn't brush them off the next morning with a laugh and a stretch. You examined them, shared them, interpreted them, especially if they were vivid or strange or repetitive. Because if the same crocodile shows up 3 nights in a row wearing your cousin's face and whispering about your goats, yeah, that probably needs decoding. This is where the dream interpreters come in. In the town of Deir el-Medina, home to the skilled workers who built the tombs of kings, these interpreters were a staple of daily life. Part priest, part psychologist, part performance artist. They carried dream manuals, thick scrolls listing common visions and their meanings. Some even claimed they could trace dreams back to your past sins or future mishaps. According to one dream, Papyrus dreaming of eating crocodile meat was a sign of becoming influential. Dreaming of drinking warm beer meant an argument was coming. Dreaming of being bitten by a donkey, bad harvest. There was a list for everything. A strange cross between mystic prophecy and daytime drama. Quirky detail 1. Dream interpretation reads, if a man dreams of seeing himself in a mirror, it means he will have a new child. There's no explanation why. Maybe the child was reflective. Historians still argue whether these interpretations were purely symbolic or tied to cultural taboos and daily experiences. Were these books meant as strict manuals or more as poetic reflections of collective anxiety? Like, did anyone actually eat crocodile meat? Unclear. But the symbolism mattered. The scribes who compiled these dream books weren't working alone. Dreams were considered sacred ground, messages from the gods. And as such, the interpreters often worked in or near temples. Before they'd interpret a dream, they might burn incense, consult with deities, or even fast. Because let's face it, if someone's telling you that your dream about bees means an impending betrayal, you want them to be at least a little spiritually clean. Of course, not all dreams required an expert. Some were obvious, too obvious, like the time you dreamt you were drowning in grain. You didn't need anyone to tell you that meant stress about the harvest. Or the night you dreamt you married a donkey in front of your entire village. Yep, definitely anxiety. Still, even these dreams were worth mentioning to a friend, to your mothers, to the baker, who always nodded like he understood even when he didn't. Because saying your dreams out loud gave them shape, made them real. And in Egypt, real things demanded attention. You stir in your sleep, now fingers twitching as your dream shifts. Maybe you're walking through a temple walls covered in gold. Maybe you're a bird. Maybe you're inside someone else's dream, watching yourself sleep. And that would be a big deal. In Egyptian belief, some dreams weren't just messages, they were journeys. The soul ba left the body and wandered. It could travel through the duat, the underworld, visiting ancestors, seeking advice, or even peeking into the next life. This wasn't metaphor, it was reality, just at a different frequency. That's why you sleep surrounded by protection. Amulets, spells, incense. The headrest to keep your soul from returning to a body that's been flipped over by a curious cat or nudged by a goat. Everything arranged so that when you return, if you return, you'll land softly like a feather, falling back into place. Outside, the night is still. The stars wheel slowly overhead, the same constellations Pharaoh gazed at when dreaming of war, or peace, or more children. The river hums beyond the fields, and you tucked beneath linen sheets lie silent, still, but not untraveled, because your body rests here, sure, but your ba, your soul, that's another story. It's walking now, slipping past doorways, sliding through dreams like a fish through water, following the whispers of gods you've never seen, but somehow still know by name. And when you wake, if you remember, it'll be your job to turn those whispers into meaning. The rooster crows again, late this time, mercifully, and a shaft of dusty light sneaks through the slit in your wall. You blink once, twice, then sink back down into the sheets, willing yourself to drift once more. But your mind is already stirring, still caught on the image from your last dream, your grandmother's voice echoing from a cave lined with golden lotus petals. You didn't see her face, only heard the rhythm of her breath and the way she said your name as though it meant something older than time. You lie there wondering, was that really a dream? Or did she come back for a visit? Because in ancient Egypt, dreams weren't just for the living. The dead showed up too, sometimes uninvited. This wasn't rare, quite the opposite. Families fully expected their departed loved ones to stop by from time to time, usually with advice or complaints. Or that passive-aggressive, I noticed you haven't left any onions on my shrine lately, energy. If you dreamt of a deceased relative, It was assumed they had something to say. It wasn't just memory, it was a message, and not all these visits were gentle. Sometimes a ghost was angry. Maybe their tomb was disturbed. Maybe their name wasn't spoken during festivals. Maybe they'd asked for beer in the afterlife, and you only left bread. Spirits could be petty. Understandably so, eternity is a long time to go without your favorite snack. So Egyptians developed a system because of course they did. If you had a dream that felt like a ghostly visit, you wrote a letter. Not a metaphorical one, a literal letter to the dead. You'd write something like, "Dear Father, I've dreamt of you again. Please stop appearing in the form of a jackal and urinating on our wheat fields. If we've wronged you, forgive us. We'll leave 3 bowls of beer on your offering table by sundown." Quirky, absolutely. But these letters have been found. Carved on bowls, written on papyrus, even etched on tomb walls. Sometimes signed with trembling hieroglyphs, as if the dream had shaken the writer's hands. Historians still argue whether these were sincere pleas or ritual performances. But when you read a letter begging a grandmother's spirit to stop choking her granddaughter in dreams, you start to believe the fear was very, very real. You shift again, suddenly, aware of the protective charms near your bed. You reach for the one shaped like the goddess Taweret, the hippo-faced guardian of sleep and childbirth. She glares at you from her tiny form, one hand raised in eternal warning. You mutter a quick thank you, not because you believe she'll punish you, but just in case. There are other ways to keep the dead at bay. You might scatter natron's sacred salt around the bed, burn incense made of sycamore resin, or chant spells from the Book of the Dead, softly, just loud enough for spirits to hear, "You're not in the mood tonight." But not all spirits are unwelcome. Some people wanted to dream of their ancestors. Mothers who lost children. Widowers longing for a final conversation. Parents desperate for advice from the beyond. These dreams were cherished, recorded, and retold as signs that love outlasts breath. In these moments, sleep became sacred, not just a rest, but a reunion. You roll onto your side, now facing the wall where a faint shadow of an old carving lingers. It shows a man kneeling before an altar, arms outstretched, eyes wide, with something between awe and terror. A dream scene, maybe, or a prayer, or both. Because in Egypt, dreams didn't belong just to the dreamer. They were part of the larger tapestry, connected to the land, the gods, and the river of time that flowed from yesterday to forever. To dream of the dead was to touch something eternal, and it came with responsibility. You had to listen. So you think again of your grandmother's voice. What was she trying to say? Was it a warning, a memory, a blessing? Was she trying to tell you to look after the family shrine? Or was it something simpler, that she still watches, still cares, still lingers, like perfume in an empty room? Whatever it was, you whisper her name under your breath. Just once, just to make sure she hears. And outside the rooster crows again louder this time. You sigh, stretch, and rise slowly from the bed. The stone headrest rolls off your mat with a gentle thunk. Your neck is stiff, your back is sore, but your soul feels lighter because maybe, just maybe, you weren't sleeping all last night. You're upright now, bare feet, brushing the cool clay floor, But part of you is still elsewhere, half rooted in that place dreams come from. You stretch slowly, arms reaching toward the painted ceiling, stars yawning like a lion just waking from its own 1,000-year nap. Outside, the morning haze hasn't quite lifted, but the Nile glistens beyond the rooftops, a long silver ribbon slicing through the desert. You move through your small home, questly careful not to disturb those still curled in sleep. Your cousin snores in the corner, sprawled on his mat, like he fought lions all night. Maybe he did. Dreams are tricky like that. But before you think about breakfast, or work, or whatever the foreman's going to shout about today, there's something else to handle. Last night's dream was odd, ominous maybe. Your grandmother, the cave, the golden lotus. You can still hear the fush in her voice, like wind through reeds. That can't be ignored, so you gather your things, a fresh piece of linen, a bit of ink, a reed pen, and a handful of bread for the walk. You're going to the dream interpreter. Deir el Medina, your village perched near the Valley of the Kings, is known for many things. Its skilled tomb builders, its tight-knit community, its love of gossip, but also for its sacred connection to the divine. The people here live among stories. You carve them, paint them, preserve them on the walls of the dead. So when someone has a dream that feels heavy, it isn't dismissed, it's deciphered. You make your way to the far end of town, past crumbling mud brick homes and morning fires being kindled. Chickens scatter. A child throws a date pit. Life buzzes around you, but your mind is fixed on that cave, that voice. Your pen itches in your palm. The dream interpreter's home is low and narrow, with papyrus scrolls hanging in bundles from the ceiling and incense burning in small clay pots near the door. You duck inside and are greeted by a man whose beard is longer than your patience. He nods once silently and gestures for you to sit. And then comes the process. You describe the dream, every odd detail, every symbol you can remember. The ibis, the lotus cave, the voice that wasn't quite hers. He listens, fingers, steepled brow furrowed, like he's heard something similar before, but can't quite place it. Then wordlessly, he retrieves a worn papyrus scroll, lays it across his lap, and begins to scan the inked lines. He mutters as he reads golden flowers, cave, voice of the dead, protective omen, could mean fertility or famine. Helpful, you offer him bread. He chews thoughtfully and continues. The ibis did it. Fly left or right. You blink. Left, you think. Maybe. He grunts. Then it's a visitation. Someone is watching you. You leave with more questions than answers, as is often the case. But that's not the point. The ritual matters. The telling. The sharing. The reminder that your dreams belong to a larger world, one where gods still meddle and the dead still speak. Quirky fact. Some dream interpreters kept dream calendars to track who dreamt what and when. If 5 villagers in a week dreamt of fire-devouring grain, it might mean something's coming war disease or a bad festival batch of lentils. Your dream isn't just yours. It's data. It's prophecy. Historians still argue whether these interpretations were actually believed or used more as a form of psychological release, a way to express fear without directly naming it. But the way your interpreter looked at you, the way he rolled up that scroll with reverence, suggests he believes. And now so do you, a little. You walk home slowly, sandals tapping softly against the dusty path, thinking about the weight of a voice from beyond. Maybe tonight she'll return. Maybe she'll say more. Or maybe the dream will shift, turn into something new. Either way, you'll be ready. You'll sleep lightly, watchfully, because in Egypt, the veil between this world and the next is always thin. And the dead, they don't knock. They whisper. The sun is high now, baking the rooftops and chasing every shadow back under the eaves. But your thoughts keep circling back to the night, to sleep, to that strange realm where bodies lie still but souls wander. And here in Egypt, even the holiest among you must rest, including the priests, including the gods chosen. You might picture temple life as non-stop chanting incense smoke and chicken sacrifices at all hours, and you wouldn't be far off. But even those who serve the gods need to close their eyes sometimes. And when they do, it's not in just any bed. You turn your gaze toward the temple district, massive stone columns, towering like giants, frozen mid-step. Inside, the pests who serve there follow schedules stricter than any soldier. They must remain ritually pure. That means fasting, bathing multiple times a day, and avoiding things that could taint their connection to the divine, like garlic, or sex, or dreams they can't explain. So what happens when a priest needs to sleep? He does it carefully. First, he purifies himself. Ritual washing in sacred water, often pulled directly from the Nile's edge, or a temple basin guarded by crocodile carvings. He chants protective spells, rubs scented oils into his skin. Then, only then, does he lie down, usually on a raised platform within the temple, separated from the common sleeping spaces of the city. And here's where things get interesting. Some priests didn't sleep just for rest. They slept to receive messages intentionally. This practice, known as incubation, was a form of divine dream channeling. The priest would lie in a specially prepared chamber, often within or beside a sanctuary, to await visions. Sometimes, a patient seeking healing would lie there instead, hoping for a dream that brought a cure or instruction. Imagine that you walk into a temple, not for a blessing, but for a nap. A sacred nap, one that could reveal the future, diagnose your illness, or offer you a cryptic riddle in the voice of Horus. It's not a fringe idea either. Whole temples were constructed around this purpose. The most famous belonged to Imhotep, the priest-physician and eventual god of healing. His sanctuary became a hotspot for dream-based medicine. People came from all over Egypt, hoping to sleep on its stone floor and wake with divine guidance. Some reportedly dreamt of surgical instructions, others of symbolic journeys that pointed to emotional wounds. Some probably just dreamt of eating honey cakes and woke up disappointed. But every dream was taken seriously. Historians still argue whether the dream healings actually worked or if the placebo effect had already been invented in a land where gods carried scalpels and spoke in riddles. Either way, people believed, and belief is its own kind of medicine. Quirky tidbit: in certain rituals, priests would place a tiny figurine or symbol under the dreamer's pillow to encourage a specific type of vision. Want healing? A miniature Imhotep. Want to get pregnant? A little frog goddess Heket. Want to stop dreaming about your ex? Well, that's a trickier spell, but chances are it involved cedar oil and burning a lock of their hair. You shift your thoughts back to your own sleeping space, humble though it is. It may not be lined with alabaster or blessed by temple incense, but it still functions the same. You close your eyes. Your soul wanders, and if the gods are in the mood, maybe, just maybe, they'll drop in with a message. You think of the priests again, lying in shadowy chambers, listening to the hum of silence, broken only by their own breath. How strange it must be to wait for a god while pretending to sleep. Or maybe that's what all of sleep is. A performance. A posture we adopt in case anyone divine is watching. You stretch your arms behind your back, imagining yourself lying on a temple floor, a bronze bowl of lotus petals. Beside your head, a priest murmuring spells. In the next room, the air is thick with incense. Your body is still, your spirit listens, and for a moment, in the heat of the day, you wonder if maybe, just maybe, this next nap will be the one where the gods speak clearly. You lie back down on your mat, arms folded like Osiris, just in case someone's watching. The afternoon heat presses down like a golden blanket, thick, shimmering, and inescapable. The walls of your home radiate stored sunlight, and the clay floor beneath you is the only thing remotely cool. There's no breeze now, not even a whisper from the Nile, just stillness, and the steady buzz of flies arguing over a half-dried fig in the corner. You wipe a bead of sweat from your temple and sigh. There's no fighting the heat. So you do what any sensible Egyptian would do: you nap. It's not laziness, it's survival. Midday rest is baked into the culture as firmly as bread into a clay oven. The body can't push through the hottest hours without consequence. You've seen it yourself. Workers collapsing on the job, too proud to rest, too dehydrated to stand. Even Pharaoh, beneath layers of linen and gold, pauses for sleep during this furnace time. Napping isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And so you settle again onto your mat. You fold your linen over your eyes to dim the brightness. You angle your head onto the stone rest, not because it's comfortable, but because it's familiar. And the second you let go, sleep claims you. But this sleep, it's different from the long night's dreaming. This is the quick slip, the drifting sort, the kind of nap where time bends and stretches like warm wax. You dream again, but only for a moment. This time, you're in a garden. Papyrus reeds rise high around you. Birds call overhead. A woman's laugh echoes just out of sight. You reach for it. She vanishes. You wake with a start, breath shallow. No more than 20 minutes have passed, but the dream clings like mist. You don't write it down. It was too fast, too light. It'll evaporate before dusk, and yet it still matters, because in ancient Egypt, even short dreams could carry weight. There's an old saying, a dream of 5 heartbeats is still a message from the gods. Whether that's poetic or practical depends on how often you nap. In fact, some believed the timing of your dream affected its meaning. A dream just after dawn, a warning, a midday dream likely a blessing, one just as afore dusk, possibly a prophecy. There were charts for this, literal sleep schedules mapped to divine availability, like trying to catch your favorite god during their office hours. Historians still argue whether this practice was widespread or limited to temple life, but among common people, a rhythm emerged where at dawn, west at midday dream, just long enough to see the gods wink, then back to the fields. Quirky detail. Some believed that midday dreams were more honest, unfiltered by the long night's anxieties. The kind of visions that weren't muddled by ghosts, grief, or last night's overindulgence in date wine. A clean dream, if you will, a dream drawn straight from the sky. You stir now, brush dust from your arm, and rise slowly. The heat is still there, heavy as ever, but your head feels lighter. You blink against the light squint toward the courtyard and spot your neighbor doing the same, stretching, yawning, scratching at his tunic like a lizard sunbathing on a warm rock. You nod at each other. No words, just the shared understanding. It's too hot to think, but dreams still come. Later, as the sun dips low and shade returns to the walls, you'll talk about it. Over lentils, over beer. Someone will mention the woman they dreamt of her face, like moonlight, her words like song. Another will claim he dreamt of falling into a pit filled with scorpions and gold. Everyone will nod solemnly, as if they too have scorpion pits to worry about. And you'll just smile. You won't share today's dream. Not yet. It was too light, too quiet, but it meant something. Because in Egypt, even the shortest sleep may carry echoes from the beyond. And every waking, a chance to listen better next time. Evening arrives slowly, as it always does along the Nile. The sun softens into gold, casting long shadows across clay courtyards and palm-thatched rooftops. The heat begins to lift grudgingly, like a heavy curtain drawn back after a long performance. You can breathe again. The flies lose interest. The world exhales. And with the cool comes routine. You're sweeping the floor now, humming without thinking, tracing the same lines your parents did, your grandparents did. The same ones they'll trace in the afterlife, if the priests are right. Dust, sweep, rinse, repeat. It's not glamorous, but it's sacred in its own way, because night is coming, and night requires preparation. You collect your linen sheets and shake them outside, just in case any beetles or gossiping spirits have taken up residence. You light a bit of incense, setting the clay burner on a low stool beside your bed. The smoke rises in slow curls, thick with myrrh and a hint of crushed juniper, cleansing, purifying, and pleasantly sharp. Not just for the nose, for the soul. Tonight you're hoping for a specific kind of dream, not one of ghosts, not one of riddles or ominous caves. You want clarity, guidance, maybe even joy. And in Egypt, you don't leave that up to chance, so you begin your bedtime ritual. First, a sip of cool water poured from a red clay jug left in the shade all afternoon, then a short chant, soft, rhythmic, almost a whisper. Words passed down from your great aunt, who swore she once dreamed of Bastet herself and woke to find a stray cat sleeping at her door. You sprinkle natron salt in a tiny circle around your mat, small enough to be symbolic, big enough to make you feel safe. It crunches slightly beneath your heel. That's good. Crunch means coverage. Then you retrieve your dream charm. It's not much to look at, a little hippo carved from blue faience, worn smooth by years of prayer and thumb rubbing. But it bears the symbol of Taweret, the goddess who protects sleepers, women in childbirth, and anyone smart enough to ask. You place her beside your headrest, nose pointed outward like a guard dog. You lie down, head resting on cool stone once again, arms folded loosely across your chest, legs tucked beneath your linen sheet. The air smells like sandalwood and river clay. And now you wait, because in Egypt dreaming can be summoned. Not every night, not reliably, but with enough ritual, enough intention, the gods might just hear you. One quirky trick. Some people whispered a wish into a piece of bread before sleep, then ate it slowly, believing the request would pass from belly to soul to dream. You tried it once, dreamed of dancing hippopotamuses, unsure if it was a message or indigestion. Historians still argue whether these rituals were deeply believed or more cultural comfort habitual, like knocking wood or tossing salt. But in a world where dreams hold power, doing something feels better than doing nothing. So you do it. Outside, crickets begin their song. A donkey brays. A neighbor coughs twice, then falls silent. And then, stillness. You lie there, eyes closed, thinking of nothing and everything. The river, your grandmother, the ibis again, the smell of honey cakes in the market, your friend's ridiculous claim that he once dreamed of playing a harp made of bones. Leap creeps in slowly like the tide. And just before you drift entirely, a thought flutters in. What if the gods are listening tonight? You smile, not because you know they are, but because it's enough to wonder. And with that you slip away, not just into sleep, but into a conversation older than language, deeper than the Nile, carried by stars that never forget your name. You awaken sometime in the night, not fully, just enough to register the silence. It's thick now, the kind of silence that makes you feel like the world is holding its breath. Even the crickets have gone quiet. Your eyes open slowly, adjusting to the dark lit faintly by moonlight, slipping through the reed-covered window. The room is still. Shadows sit heavily in the corners. You lie very still, not out of fear but reverence, because this deep night hour is sacred. In ancient Egypt, this was the time when the veil between worlds was thinnest, when the gods moved freely, when spirits wandered, not maliciously, not always, but with purpose. This is when messages are delivered, when the unseen speaks, and perhaps listens. You hear nothing now, except your own breath and the slight creak of your headrest as you shift. You're lying on your side, curled slightly, your linen twisted from earlier dreams. A bead of sweat clings to your neck despite the coolness of the air. Something in your chest flutters, not fear exactly, more like awareness, something brushed close. You close your eyes again, but this time with intent. You try to remember what stirred you, a sound, a sensation, a presence. There's no answer, only the memory of a sensation, like a breeze though no wind stirs, like a whisper though no voice spoke. Some Egyptians describe this as the Ba passing through not yours, but someone else's. Perhaps an ancestor's, perhaps a stranger's. The Ba, the soul bird, was thought to fly freely at night, to visit loved ones, to watch the living, to settle gently on their chests like a quiet bird of memory. And yes, some believed it could speak. You don't move, you just listen, and after a while, something flickers behind your eyes. You're dreaming again, but this dream doesn't start like the others, with odd symbols or shifting landscapes. It begins in your own home, the one you're lying in now. You're standing at the doorway watching yourself sleep. The moonlight gleams on your cheek. You look peaceful, too peaceful, and behind you, standing quietly, is your grandfather. He doesn't speak. He doesn't move. He simply watches you, your dreaming self watching your sleeping self. It's a loop, a mirror turned inward. You try to call his name, but no sound comes. He only nods as if to say, "Not yet." And then he walks backward, yes, backward, into the dark hallway, disappearing like breath into fog. You wake again, but not with a jolt, not with a gasp. With stillness, you open your eyes and find that the moon has moved. The room is slightly cooler. A soft wind dances along the edges of the curtain. You lie there, pulse steady, mind tingling. You know that wasn't just a dream. It had weight, texture, that strange inner gravity dreams only have when they've been touched by something greater than you. You reach for your reed pen again, scribble quickly onto your scrap of linen, "Grandfather." Standing, watching, silent, backward, moonlight. You don't know what it means, but it will be enough for the interpreter tomorrow. And if it's not, you'll dream again. Quirky note. Some Egyptians believed that dreams could be continued if interrupted, say, by a donkey braying or someone coughing. You could perform a small ritual lie, back down in the same position, and re-enter the same dream. They called it tying the knot of vision. A charm was sometimes whispered, "Return, O dream, to where you were cut." Historians still argue whether this was common knowledge or esoteric priestcraft. But you've tried it. Once, it worked, maybe. You shift under your linen again, settling your neck carefully into the curve of the headrest. It doesn't hurt anymore. It feels right, like a doorway, like alignment. Outside, the wind picks up slightly. The reeds sway. You hear water lapping against the riverbank in the distance. The Nile never sleeps. Why would it? It's the highway of souls, the artery of gods, the cradle of dreams. You let yourself drift again, eyes fluttering shut. If your grandfather returns, you'll be ready. If he doesn't, well, maybe someone else will. The night is long, and in Egypt, sleep is never empty. Morning comes slowly, as if reluctant to disturb the stories still playing behind your eyes. You lie in the soft hush between sleep and wakefulness, where dream edges blur and the real world returns like a tide creeping back to shore. A rooster calls. The second one today, not the overeager one from yesterday, but the sensible one. The light grows golden against your wall. You stretch fingers grazing the natron sprinkled around your mat. Some of the grains stick to your skin. You brush them off gently, not because you mind, but because the ritual feels complete. You sit up slowly, joints cracking like papyrus, drying in the sun. The dream is still there, barely, like mist clinging to reeds. Your grandfather, the backward walk, the feeling that something is still unfinished. You whisper a thanks, just a breath, a habit now, and reach for the amulet beside your headrest. Taweret the hippo goddess still stands guard. You nod to her too, just in case she did more than you realized, and then you rise to begin the day. But even as you wash your face with cool water and pull on your linen tunic, you can't help but feel changed. Not shaken, not scared, just shifted, like something inside you tilted half a degree, like a reed in the river suddenly turning with the current. Dreams do that. You make your way out into the yard, where a pot of lentils steams gently over a low fire. Your aunt stirs it with a practiced hand, not looking up. "Did you sleep?" she asks. You nod. She doesn't press. She knows. Everyone here knows. Sleep isn't small talk. It's sacred terrain, because this morning, like many mornings in Egypt, you won't be the only one remembering strange visions. Someone dreamt of drowning in honey. Someone dreamt their teeth fell out and grew into fig trees. Someone else woke laughing from a dream they can't recall, just the joy of it echoing in their chest. And all of it will be shared, sorted, interpreted. You finish your meal quickly and step outside, heading toward the market. Not for food, for the dream reader. Again, he'll expect you, not because your dream was urgent, but because it repeated. That matters. Repetition is a sign. As you walk the dusty path between homes, you pass the small temple by the river's edge. A priest stands outside, eyes closed, murmuring something over a bowl of flowers. He too, no doubt, dreamt last night. Perhaps a god visited him, or a ghost, or a dream that felt like neither, but refused to leave. You reach the interpreter's home. He's outside today, sitting beneath a woven reed awning. When he sees you, he raises a brow, but says nothing. He simply gestures for you to sit and waits. You tell him, "The same man. My grandfather." Again, he leans forward. You describe the dream as best you can. The moonlight, the silence, the nod, the backward step. He listens with that same unreadable frown he always wears, like he's trying to remember something from another life. He reaches for a different scroll today. Older, cracked, the edges are darkened as if it's seen too many hands or too much incense. He reads, he murmurs, then finally he says, "The backward walk means return. He is not warning you. He is waiting." You blink. Waiting for what? The interpreter shrugs, perhaps for you, perhaps for the right question. He offers no more, just a shrug and the smell of burning papyrus. You thank him, leave a small bundle of dried dates as payment, and walk back slowly. Historians still argue whether these interpreters truly believed what they said or simply read the person, not the dream. But you're not a historian. You're a dreamer, a sleeper, a traveler across the fields of night. You've seen something, felt something, and tonight you'll try again. You return home, you rinse your face, you lie back down. Yes, during the day. Why not? The linen is warm. The house is quiet. The gods are always listening. You place the hippo goddess near your head once more. You whisper, "I'm ready," and you close your eyes, letting sleep come not as a thief, but as a guide. You slip under again, not like falling, but like stepping through a curtain one you've walked through many times, but never quite in the same way. This sleep feels deliberate, crafted as if the night itself has been waiting for you to return. You lie in a field now, though your body still rests on a clay mat in your warm Egyptian home. In the dream, the field is endless papyrus, swaying in the wind, the stalks taller than any temple column. And there, in the distance, that figure again, your grandfather. Waiting, you walk to him, though the ground feels soft, like sand beneath water. He says nothing at first, just stands, his eyes holding something vast and unreadable. You open your mouth to speak, but your voice stays curled behind your tongue. Instead, he lifts a hand slowly and points behind you. You turn, a jackal, black as midnight, sitting calmly in the reeds. You wake with a start. This time, you feel it differently. Not confusion, not fear, but clarity. Because if there's one figure that walks through more Egyptian dreams than any other, it's Anubis, protector of tombs, guide of souls, guardian of transitions. You sit upright, the linen clinging to your arms. Your breath is steady, but your heart, your IB is pounding. That wasn't just a dream. In ancient Egypt, Anubis was more than a funerary god. He was a presence that lingered at the edge of all endings and beginnings. Appearing in dreams wasn't always a threat. Sometimes it was an invitation, a reminder that something in your life was shifting, dying, or being reborn. It's a common theme in Egyptian dream lore. A jackal in a dream often signified protection or transition, but its meaning wasn't fixed. Was it Anubis come to prepare your soul for change, or a warning or a promise? You've heard stories from neighbors, children who dreamt of jackals and suddenly found themselves wise beyond their years. Fishermen who claimed Anubis warned them of storms. One old woman who said he walked with her every night after her husband died. Quirky fact. Some even placed jackal figurines under their pillows to invite such dreams, hoping to be chosen. You didn't, but apparently you've been chosen anyway. Historians still argue whether these appearances were interpreted individually or with formal guidance. Some believe entire families recorded jackal dreams across generations, building long genealogies of spiritual protection. You stare at your headrest now. It looks the same, cold, silent, but it feels different, like it knows. And you begin to wonder, was your grandfather showing you Anubis, or becoming him? You walk outside to clear your mind. The sun is setting again, Egypt's slow and golden sigh. You sit beneath the tamarisk tree behind your home, watching the last of the birds wheel across the sky. You think of what it means to be guided, protected, watched, not in the sinister way we sometimes fear, but with purpose, with care. You decide you're not afraid. Tonight you will sleep again. You will not perform the bread spell or whisper any requests. You will simply lie down, open, ready. You return inside. This time, before lying down, you turn your headrest slightly, just a few degrees. A gesture, a sign, not to block anything, but to say, I see you. You press your hand to the amulet beside your bed, toweret on one side, and now a new token. You've placed a small black stone, smooth and curved, like the ear of a jackal. It may be nothing, or it may be everything. You lie back, arms at your sides, the linen warm from the day's sun. And as the room darkens around you, you close your eyes not to forget, but to return. You are not chasing the dream now. You are welcoming it. You return without hesitation this time. No stumbling through fog, no clinging to scraps of dreams. You lie down, close your eyes, and fall not like a stone, but like a feather caught in gravity's gentle hand. The moment your breath deepens, the dream wraps itself around you like a linen shroud. But this time it's not your home. It's a temple. You walk barefoot along cool alabaster floors. The air is thick with myrrh and lotus. The walls rise high, inscribed with stories you've seen 100 times in daylight battles, births, processions, but here they glow faintly with blue light, as if the gods themselves had etched them in moonbeam ink. You move forward. Each step echoes. No other sound, no wind, no voices. Just that echo reminding you that you are alone, or perhaps not quite. At the end of the corridor, a door, carved with two jackals' mirror images, facing each other. Beneath them, a small inscription: "To dream is to cross." You press your hand to the door, and then you wake. But not as all the way. You're still between. You feel the linen on your chest, the firmness of your headrest, the buzz of a mosquito somewhere nearby. Yet the door remains behind your eyelids waiting. You don't want to forget it, because the ancient Egyptians believed the dream realm had structure, not just visions and symbols, but places, chambers, roads, portals. They imagined dreams as maps, as journeys, as tests, and temples especially, those dedicated to healing prophecy or the afterlife, often became anchor points. Physical locations where the veil was thinner, where the dream door opened easier. You've just seen one, and not everyone does. Some priests trained specifically to dream inside temple walls. They'd fast, cleanse, sleep on sacred mats beside statues of deities, and their visions would be interpreted not by themselves, but by others, scribes, hierophants, or dream librarians. Yes, that was likely a thing. Quirky detail. Some temples kept dream register scrolls that recorded visitor dreams, particularly if they occurred within temple walls. They'd catalog who dreamt what they saw, which deity appeared, and what message was given. Like divine Yelp reviews. Historians still argue how much autonomy dreamers had in interpreting these experiences. Was the dream always seen as prophecy, or were there layers, divine, personal, medical? Some dreams were taken as diagnosis, a snake in your stomach, intestinal worms. Falling off a boat, maybe you're dehydrated, but when a dream took place inside a temple, even just in vision, it was seen differently. Not symbolic, sacred. You sit up now, fully awake, but not ready to speak. You move through the morning motions slowly. Water robe, sandals, aware that something is shifting. Dreams are no longer just images. They are invitations. You're being drawn somewhere, and you want to follow. You go to the market, but not for food or interpretation. Today you visit the temple of Khonsu, the god of the moon and protector of dreamers. His small shrine near the river has been quiet lately, tended mostly by the old priest who never seems to blink. When you arrive, he's sweeping the steps. He pauses, looks up, and without waiting for you to speak, says, "You've seen the door, haven't you?" You nod. He doesn't smile, just beckons you in. Inside, the air is cool, dim. The scent of blue lotus is heavy comforting, but a little dizzying. The priest shows you to a corner near the altar and gestures to lie down. You will sleep here tonight, he says. Not to rest, to continue. You don't argue, because this isn't just a dream anymore. It's a path, and you have begun walking it. That night, you lie beneath a stone ceiling carved with constellations older than memory. The air is still reverent. The temple is quiet, not silent, but filled with the kind of stillness that listens. You can feel it in your bones, in your breath, in the soft hum behind your ribs, as if something ancient is tuning you to its frequency. You're not on your usual mat. No dusty floor, no goat braying through the window. Instead, you lie on a woven reed platform wrapped in clean linen that smells of cedar and desert wind. The headrest is smoother than yours, at home, worn by centuries of dreamers before you. Your fingers brush the carved symbols etched into its base, eyes, moons, stars, and one familiar figure, Anubis jackal-faced, watching. The priest says nothing as he dims the last lamp. Just a nod, then the echo of his sandals retreating down the corridor. You are alone now with your thoughts, your breath, and whatever waits behind sleep's curtain. You close your eyes, and sleep takes you immediately. No drifting, no resistance. You are back in the temple, but not this one. This time, it stretches impossibly high, its walls open to stars that burn with colors you've never seen. Columns swirl upward like smoke. The floor beneath your feet ripples like water, but holds your steps as if solid stone. It's beautiful, terrifying, and familiar. The jackals from your last dream sit beside a new door, this one wide open and pulsing with light. Not warm light, not cold, just knowing. You step through. Suddenly, you're not in a temple. You're in a field, but not the one with reeds. This field is white papyrus flowers everywhere, nodding gently in a wind you can't feel. And there, standing beside a low stone altar, is your grandfather. He looks younger now, stronger. He doesn't speak, but he gestures for you to kneel beside him. You do. And he begins to write, not with pen or chisel, but with a glowing reed pulled from the flowers around you. He draws in the air symbols of your life, your joys, your regrets, your unanswered questions. Then he pauses, he looks at you, and hands you the reed. You take it and wake, not with a start, but with a deep inhale that fills your chest like the first breath after diving too long. The temple is still dim. The stars outside the open roof still twinkle, but the sun is near. You sit up slowly, and in your hand, a papyrus reed. Just an ordinary one, or maybe not. You don't speak. You don't rush. You know what this means. Because in Egypt, dreams that leave something behind are rare, sacred, and not always metaphorical. You return home, carrying the reed like a scroll of prophecy. You tell no one, at least not yet. You place it on your altar beside your amulets. You sit, you breathe, and for the first time in many nights, you do not dream. Because some dreams are not meant to continue. Some are meant to land, to settle, to wait. Quirky fact, there are records of Egyptians treating dream objects as talismans, ordinary items found near their beds after vivid dreams considered blessed. Some were worn as pendants, others buried beneath doorways for protection. Some became family heirlooms. The scribes never agreed on whether these items were divine gifts or hallucinations, but they wrote them down carefully. Historians still debate whether these accounts reflect literal events or symbolic traditions. But as you hold your reed smooth and real and humming faintly in your palm, you realize it doesn't matter. It is yours, and you are not the same. You carry the reed everywhere now, tucked in the fold of your linen belt by day, resting beside your headrest by night. You don't flaunt it, you barely mention it aloud, but its presence lingers like the fading scent of myrrh after a procession. It hums quietly in your thoughts, pulsing with the memory of that dream, that gift, that moment. Life continues around you, but it feels different. The sun still rises. The baker still burns the bottom of the flatbread. Your cousin still swears the cat talks to him when no one's listening. But for you, the world has shifted half a degree. You're watching it all from a slightly different angle now. The edges of things feel thinner. You find yourself returning to the temple, not always to sleep, but to sit, to listen. You sweep the steps when the priests forget. You refill the offering bowls with lotus petals from the canal, and sometimes in the middle of your chores, you feel a flutter behind your ribs, like your ba, your soul bird, remembering how to stretch its wings. One afternoon, a traveler arrives, sunburned, harried, desperate. She's heard of the temple of its dreams. She has not slept in 3 nights. Her husband is ill. Her child cries at shadows. She asks if you are the priest. You say no. She asks again, this time quieter, looking at the reed tucked in your belt. You don't know what to say. So you invite her to sleep in the shaded chamber on the same mat where you once lay. You burn incense. You recite a quiet charm one you barely remember learning. She closes her eyes, and when she wakes an hour later, she cries softly, says she dreamt of a white hippo carrying her child across a river. You don't interpret it. You don't need to. She leaves smiling. That night you wonder, was this how it started for the dream guides of old One Dream? One gift, one stranger asking for help, and suddenly you're a gatekeeper. Quirky note, in some Egyptian texts, there's mention of accidental priests, people chosen by dreams, not lineage, chosen by the gods themselves, often reluctant, often confused, but always watched. These dreamers became keepers of visions, protectors of symbols, not because they wanted to be, but because someone had to be. Historians still argue whether this was metaphor or ministry. Were these real people or stories meant to make dreamers feel less alone? You lie awake that night, staring at your ceiling. No stars painted here, just smooth clay faintly cracked from years of sun and laughter and restless children tossing in sleep. You place the reed beside your head again, but tonight sleep comes slowly, not from anxiety, not from fear, from reverence, because you know something now. Dreams are not always about you. Sometimes they're about what you carry through you, and tonight you feel like a bridge. You close your eyes, not hoping for vision, but offering rest. If the gods arrive, they will arrive. If your grandfather returns, you'll listen. If Anubis visits again, you'll ask nothing. You'll just be. Because in ancient Egypt, to dream was not just to see, but to serve. Not just to receive, but to hold. And now you are holding. You sleep, but not as before. This time, you enter the dream already aware. Not lucid exactly, but grounded. You know it's a dream, and the dream knows you know. There's a shared understanding now, a quiet truce between your waking self and whatever realm lies just behind your eyelids. You walk through a hall of mirrors, but not the kind we know today, not glass, not silver-backed, not polished to vanity. These mirrors are bronze, curved, a little cloudy, the kind used by nobles and priests, the kind buried with the dead to help them see themselves in the afterlife. As you pass each one, you catch glimpses not of your reflection, but of versions of yourself. You as a child, you as an old man, you as a figure cloaked in linen, holding a staff shaped like a reed. You pause at one. In it, your eyes are glowing. The room dims around you. The mirrors begin to hum, vibrating softly, with a pitch that resonates in your chest. You reach out, fingertip, brushing the metal, and suddenly you're back on the floor of the temple, fully awake, fully breathless. The bronze mirror from your dream lies beside you. You blink, rub your eyes. No, it's real, or real enough. The next morning, the priest doesn't even ask what you saw. He only lifts the mirror, studies it, then hands it back. Yours now, he says. In ancient Egypt, dreams that left objects behind were considered more than omens. They were proof. Evidence that the veil between realms had opened even briefly. Some believed these items held protective power. Others saw them as burdens, anchors, reminders that you now walked between two worlds. You carry the mirror home, wrapped in linen. You place it beside the reed. Two gifts, two weights, and now you begin to dream differently. Not just in sleep, but while awake. You catch yourself staring at water and seeing faces ripple beneath the surface. You hear someone call your name when no one's there. You write things down, phrases you don't understand, symbols that seem to arrive on their own. A neighbor knocks asking if you've heard of someone who interprets dream snakes. You nod. You listen. You don't even need the scrolls anymore. You're becoming something else. Not a priest, not a prophet, just a person who listens more deeply now, who understands that sleep is not a pause in life, but a second version of it. Quirky fact, some Egyptians believed dreams were part of the double life. The waking you, the dreaming you, both equally real, equally sacred. They called it Sekhem duality, a spiritual echo where one self walked in under Ra's daylight and the other under the moon's gaze. The two selves were meant to learn from each other, to complete each other. Historians still debate whether this was theology or metaphor. But either way, it feels true now, because you are no longer waiting for dreams. You are walking with them. And each night when you lie down, mirror to your left read, to your right, you don't hope for a vision. You open the door because you're not just someone who dreams. You are someone who returns. The days pass differently now. You still go to the market. You still sweep your home. You still argue about lentil prices and nod politely when someone says the floods will be better next year. But you feel the shift in every breath, as if your steps trace not just ground, but memory. The mirror sits wrapped in linen when not in use. The reed rests beside it. But even without touching them, you feel them, like amulets worn beneath skin. You've stopped questioning how they came to be. You've accepted the rhythm of it all. The night visitations, the daytime echoes, the new way your dreams no longer end when you wake. And still, something's been stirring. Each night for 7 nights now, you've had the same vision. You're in a chamber one you've never seen in waking life, carved deep into stone, lined with jackal statues. But this time, they face inward toward the center, where a single low bed rests. A figure lies there, covered in white, perfectly still. You never approach. You never see their face. You just know this isn't someone else's tomb. It's yours. You haven't told anyone, not even the priest, not because you're afraid, but because you're still listening. You're not dreaming of death. You're dreaming of sleep, because for ancient Egyptians, death wasn't an end. It was the next long rest, one you prepared for your entire life, not with fear, but with intention. Everything about Egyptian burial practices mirrored the nightly rituals of sleep, the body washed, wrapped protected with amulets, a headrest placed beneath the skull, a dream book beside the hand. It was the ultimate sleep, the final crossing. And maybe you're seeing it early, not as prophecy, but as permission. Quirky fact, some Egyptians commissioned their tombs while still in their 20s, not out of morbidity, but out of love. The tomb wasn't a grave. It was a house, a second home, one that required decorating blessing preparation. If you were lucky, your tomb was carved to resemble your dreams, fields, gardens, star-filled ceilings. They wanted to sleep in beauty forever. Historians still argue whether this obsession with the afterlife was driven by fear or hope. But when you lie beneath painted stars each night and wake cradling a reed from your dreams, it starts to feel like something else entirely. It feels like trust. You sit with this now in the quiet of your courtyard. You stare up at the moon, wondering if it watched your grandfather's first dreams, wondering if it knows the temple you keep seeing, wondering if that still figure in the dream is you not dying but resting. Remembered, at peace, you place your hand on the mirror beside you. It's cool even in the warm night air. Your reflection stares back, faint, rippled, soft. And you speak aloud for the first time. When I go, let it be gentle. Not a plea, not a wish, just a truth. You lie down again. The reed in one hand, the mirror beside your head. You don't hope for dreams tonight. You welcome them. And whatever they bring, visions, silence, jackals, ancestors, you will walk calmly through them. Because you now understand What the Egyptians knew all along, sleep is the rehearsal, and dreams are the lullaby before the longest, gentlest night. The night wraps around you again softer now, like a linen shroud spun from silence and stars. There's no fear anymore, not even the flutter of anticipation, only readiness. You lie back beneath your thatched roof, the headrest familiar beneath your skull, your body aligned like hieroglyphs carved on a tomb wall, deliberate, intentional, eternal in its stillness. Tonight there are no temples, no jackals, no ancestral messengers standing in doorways. Tonight you sleep beside the Nile. In your dream it is vast, wider than memory, deeper than myth. The moon rides along its back like a pearl in a silver bowl. You sit on the riverbank, bare feet, dangling into cool water. It licks your ankles, gentle and playful. Beside you, a boat, simple, wooden. A narrow craft with a lotus-shaped prow and painted eyes on either side, so it can see where it sails even in the dark. In your hand, the reed, the one from many dreams ago. You dip it into the water, watch the ripples spread like words being written into time. And you realize something you're not waiting for a sign tonight. You are the sign. You step into the boat. It rocks, then settles. And as it drifts forward, you look back at the shoreline. There's no one there, no waving spirits, no priests, no echoes, just sand and grass and stillness. Because this journey isn't about them. It's about you. In Egyptian belief, the soul undertook many journeys after death, but some started before it, through dreams, through visions, through quiet nights when you lay still enough to hear eternity humming beneath your breath. Quirky detail. In some funerary texts, dreamers were said to board Ra's solar bark each night to sail across the sky and back again by morning. They believed that if your spirit traveled well in dreams, it would travel safely in death. Historians still debate whether this was symbolic or literal, but the Egyptians didn't waste time splitting hairs. To them, dream boats and death boats were carved from the same cedar. You drift now, the river's current smooth as silk. You pass floating flowers, glowing fish stars that hang low enough to kiss the water. And then, a voice, not a whisper, not a command, just a quiet presence in the back of your mind. It says you're dreaming well. You smile. You don't reply. You don't need to. The voice fades, satisfied. The dream flows on. And when you wake, the morning feels different. Not brighter, not louder, just deeper. The reed lies where it always does, but the mirror, it shows something new. Not just your reflection, but the outline of a boat, faint and perfect, traced by morning dust on its surface. You don't wipe it away, because today you understand more than ever sleep is not an escape. It is a rehearsal, a river, a return, and each night the Nile in your mind grows wider. You spend most of the day in a sort of quiet hum, not detached exactly, but tuned differently, like your ears are still listening for something beyond the wind, beyond the neighbors, beyond the clatter of amphora lids and grinding stones. The world feels layered now, as though everything you touch, the jug of water, the reed mat, the worn stone of your doorstep, is doubled in shadow, echoed by something invisible and meaningful just behind it. This must be what they meant when they spoke of Sekhem, the doubled energy of a person, body, and soul seen and unseen. You aren't drifting through the world half asleep. You're just aware that part of you is still out there, on the boat, on the dream Nile, sailing, and maybe always has been. You go about your duties. You sweep the courtyard. You exchange bread for oil. You help the old man who lives near the tamarisk tree tie his sandals, a daily task, one you never thought twice about until recently. Now you wonder if you've tied them in a dream before, if you've already helped him in the afterlife, if he's already thanked you once with a wink beneath starlight and simply forgot. Because time is strange now. Dreams slip into waking moments, like fingers sliding into water. You pause, mid-step, sometimes eyes closed, certain you'll hear your grandfather's voice, or the creak of the dreamboat's oars. You don't always, but you listen, and it's that listening that others start to notice. A girl no more than 10 appears at your doorway one afternoon, barefoot and sunburned. She stares at you for a long time, says nothing, then quietly places a broken necklace on your mat. "My mother saw you in her sleep," she says. "She said you had a boat. You want to ask what kind. You want to ask what color the water was. Instead, you simply nod. You tell her she may come back tomorrow if she wishes." She runs off without another word. Quirky detail. In many Egyptian villages, children were considered more sensitive to dreams than adults. They were seen as fresh-souled, still echoing the realm they came from. Parents often listened closely when a child spoke of dreams, especially if they included rivers, animals, or temples. There were even lullabies designed to guide dreams, simple rhythms, repeating phrases to call the gods gently into a child's sleep. You remember one now? You hum it softly as you rinse your hands in the basin that evening, and then for the first time in many nights, you wonder, what do you dream of now you've carried the reed, held the mirror, seen the temple, heard the silence, boarded the boat, but what comes next? You lie down, not with expectation, but with openness, a readiness without shape. And the dream that comes, it's not a place, it's a feeling, warmth, flow, weightlessness. You are the boat now drifting gently. You are the reed bending in the breeze. You are the dream moving through someone else's sleeping mind. You wake with tears on your cheeks, not from sadness, but from something else, something wordless. Because this time, you weren't visited. You visited someone else. You just don't know who. And somehow that feels like the most Egyptian thing of all. To sleep not only for yourself, but for others. To dream in service. To carry silence across the water like a gift. The mornings begin to blur. You wake each day beneath the same clay roof, to the same rustle of linen and chirp of sparrows in the tamarisk tree, but the line between night and day no longer feels fixed. It's more like a tide, one version of you sailing as the other recedes. Waking, dreaming. Both states carry the same weight now, and each time your eyes flutter open, you find yourself wondering, did someone else dream of me? Did some distant soul across the Nile, some scribe, some farmer, some priest's widow, see your face in their night the way you've seen others? Because lately your dreams feel less personal, not smaller, just wider, like you've become part of something collective, a shared current, a web of sleepers. You see strangers now, faces you've never met in waking life. You help them across narrow bridges made of moonlight. You whisper warnings to people standing beneath collapsing columns. You place your hand over their eyes and say, "It's not real." And when you wake, you feel as though they're the ones who dreamed of you. This is how the ancient Egyptians spoke of the Ak, the Shining One. A soul that had completed its journey, passed the tests, and now moved freely between worlds. Not bound by flesh, not limited by names, just luminous, present. You're not claiming that status for yourself, not yet, but you're starting to understand it. Quirky fact: in Theban tombs, some inscriptions describe the dream state as a kind of training for becoming an AKH. It wasn't just a nightly rest, it was a rehearsal for service, a chance to learn the landscape of the beyond so that once you crossed over, you could guide others, light their path, even visit the living in dreams just as your grandfather visited you. Historians still argue whether this dream training was metaphorical or taken literally by temple schools. But you've seen enough now to believe in the latter. When a dream leaves behind a mirror or a reed or a scent that doesn't belong to this world, you stop using phrases like "just a dream." You rise now, slowly placing the mirror in the morning sun to catch its first light. It doesn't reflect your face today. It reflects the sky, soft clouds, pale blue. But behind them, for just a moment, you see a faint flicker of stars. You smile. Someone is still watching. Later, as you tend your daily tasks, a man approaches. He looks tired, frayed, as though his soul has been walking farther than his feet. "My son," he says. He hasn't spoken in days, not since the dream. You don't ask what dream, you simply nod. He leads you to his home, a low mud brick house with a narrow courtyard and a caged bird that hasn't sung in a while. Inside, the boy sleeps. Not feverish, not sick, just deep. You sit beside him, you close your eyes, and you enter. Not your own dream this time, but his. It takes practice, it takes patience. But the moment you feel the shift, the wind change, the air sweeten, you know you're inside. You see the boy standing beneath a date palm that grows in spirals, not straight. He's afraid, looking at the sky, waiting for something to fall. You approach slowly. You take his hand. You say, "It's time to go back now." And when he opens his eyes in the real world, hours later, he says only one word: "Light." The bird sings again. You leave quietly. You don't charge anything. You don't need a papyrus scroll to interpret this, because tonight, when you lie down again, you will be ready, not just to dream, but to go where you're needed, to float quietly through the sleep of others, to bring calm, to bring silence, to carry the boat, even when no one sees you rowing. The temple feels different now. You still sweep its steps. You still place lotus petals in the offering bowls. But there's a hush that follows you, like the quiet after a chant ends, not silence exactly, but reverberation. The kind of pause that makes people lower their voices when they pass. Not out of fear, out of reverence. No one has officially named you anything. There's no ceremony, no title, but everyone knows. You are the one who listens, the one who dreams, not just for yourself, but for others. The priest simply nods when you arrive each evening. He no longer watches over your sleep. He doesn't have to. Whatever you're doing now, it's beyond his instruction. You've begun to record the dreams, not all of them, just the ones that arrive with that strange heaviness, like they want to root themselves in clay. You use reed pen and scrap linen, sometimes smooth shards of broken pottery. Dreams of women weeping underwater, of jackals balancing on ropes strung between pyramids, of birds made of ink that write names on the air and then vanish. Some of these you give away. Some you bury near the river. Some you keep tucked beneath your mat like seeds waiting for a flood. In your dreams, the boat appears less frequently now. Instead, you stand on shore. Watching, you no longer feel the need to board it. You've gone far enough for now. The water still knows you. The boat still drifts by, sometimes empty, slow, like it's patrolling its own dream space. But you remain on the bank, a watcher now, not a traveler, because someone must greet the ones returning. Quirky note. In certain funerary spells, there is mention of the doorkeeper of sleep, a being who does not sleep himself, but guards the passage, ensuring that only those meant to enter may pass. Not a god, not a priest, just a soul who has walked both shores and chosen to remain halfway between. Historians debate whether this was a mythical role or one filled by living people, volunteers, chosen dreamers, or accidental guardians like yourself. You think about this often now, because each time someone comes to you with a dream, you feel less like an interpreter and more like a lighthouse. A soft pulse in the dark, a reminder that there is a way home. One afternoon, a woman brings her husband's sandals. He passed 3 days ago, she says. He hasn't visited my dreams. You ask his name, she tells you. That night you speak it aloud before sleep. You picture his face from her description. You imagine the sandals dusty, worn, beloved. You call gently across the veil, and he answers. You see him by the river, crouched and confused, holding his shoes in one hand, like he doesn't know what they're for. You tell him she's waiting. You point toward the shoreline where the woman waits, sleeping in her own home. He nods. He walks. The next morning, she appears at your door. He came, she says, smiling. He kissed my hand. You say nothing. Just press your palm to her shoulder. A blessing, a thank you, a promise. And that night you don't dream, because even the guardian rests. Sometimes it starts with a scent, not incense, not lotus or cedar or the warm dust of your clay walls. It's something older, deeper, like wet earth after the first Nile flood, like the smell of stone being carved, like memory. You wake into the scent, though you're not sure you were ever really asleep. Your body lies still wrapped in linen, but your mind stirs as if summoned. The mirror beside you reflects only darkness, but you can feel the call. Tonight you dream of stars, not painted ones, not symbols on ceilings or carved into tombs. Real stars. Blazing, shifting, singing. You stand on a platform made of wind, high above the Nile. The river is a silver thread far below, winding through the black earth like a god's finger tracing destiny. The stars speak not in words, but in feeling. They press against your skin like gentle hands, and you know what they say. You are not alone. You never were. and now it is time to show someone else. The stars part, and through them steps a child. She is no older than 6, barefoot, her eyes wide, not with fear but with wonder. She takes your hand without hesitation. You walk together across the sky. You point to the constellations the Egyptians knew: the lion, the crocodile, the falcon soaring east. You show her the hidden ones too, the shapes only dreamers can see, the ones shaped like questions, like answers, like thresholds. And then softly the child says, "My mother dreams in tears. I want to give her a star." You smile, you kneel, you press a single glowing fragment into her palm. "It will know where to go," you say. She nods, turns, and walks back into the stars. You wake. This time not startled, just full. You rise before dawn. Walk to the edge of the village, where the tamarisk trees sway in the early breeze. You find the child there, awake, silent, holding something invisible in her cupped hands. "She dreamed of me last night," she whispers. She stopped crying. You don't ask who, you don't need to. Quirky detail: in certain temple records, there are mentions of gift dreams, visions not meant for the dreamer, but for someone else, carried like messages, delivered like parcels. One dream for another heart. It's said those who can carry them safely are rare and must be chosen by both gods and stars. Historians debate whether this was allegory or ritual, but standing here now with the child and the invisible star cradled in her hands, there's no room left for doubt. You walk her home. She doesn't speak again, but she turns to you at the gate and says, "I hope you sleep well tonight." You nod, but you don't know if you will sleep. Not because of fear, but because you might not need to. Dreams are no longer confined to night. You've begun to carry them across hours, across faces, across generations. You've become the reed, the mirror, the boat. And tonight when you lie down, it will not be to journey. It will be to wait in case someone else needs passage. The flood season arrives with its usual chaos. Boats drift lazily through now submerged paths. Children splash where walkways used to be. The Nile stretches wider, fuller, as if inhaling. And with it comes the deep scent of wet earth algae and something else, something you've come to recognize: change. Every year the flood erases and redraws the edges of the world. It smooths lines between homes and fields. It blurs landmarks. And for a time, no one knows where anything truly ends or begins. It's the perfect time for dreaming. You notice it in your neighbors. People speak more softly, sleep more deeply. More visitors come to the temple, not for offerings, but for stories, for dream interpretations, for assurance that what they saw last night wasn't madness, but message. You no longer need scrolls. You just listen. A man tells you he dreamt of swimming with crocodiles laughing. A woman describes being lifted into the sky by a rope woven from birdsong. A boy says he became a grain of sand and overheard the gods arguing. You nod. You hold their dreams like precious beads. You help them tie meaning together gently. You remind them all things flow. Quirky detail. The ancient Egyptians believed that during the inundation, when the Nile rose and swallowed the land, The gods themselves were more active, more accessible. Dreams during flood season were said to carry heightened power, as if the river wasn't just carrying silt, but secrets. Historians argue whether this belief stemmed from temple calendars or folk tradition. But in places like yours, it doesn't matter, because the dreams change during the flood. They arrive wetter, wilder, more urgent, less metaphor, more momentum, and then one night it happens to you. You dream of Ra not as the sun, but as a child. He sits in a boat made of bones and asks you plainly, "Will you carry me today?" You wake with the words still echoing in your chest. You rise, dress, step outside, and you see it. A man standing knee-deep in floodwater, sobbing, lost. He looks around like the earth has disappeared beneath him. You approach, slowly, say nothing, just extend your hand. He takes it. Together you wade through the shifting streets until his feet find solid ground again. He says, "I dreamt of being pulled under, of not knowing which way was up." You nod. You floated back. He blinks, breathes, smiles faintly. "Thank you." That night you sit by the water, your feet just brushing the current. The stars reflect on its surface. Somewhere crows croak, insects hum. The river moves as if remembering something. You look down at your reflection, but this time you see more than your face. You see all the faces you've carried, all the dreams you've held, all the sleepwalkers you've gently guided back to shore. And you understand you are no longer simply a dreamer. You are a ferryman. The rains recede. The Nile, once swollen with divine breath, begins to exhale. Water drains from alleyways, fields reappear, and life resumes its familiar shapes. But something in the village has changed, not just the landscape, the people. They watch you differently now, not with fear, not with awe, but with a soft expectation, as if you've become part of the daily rhythm, the one who walks between sleep and sun, who knows which dreams to chase and which to lay gently aside. And you no longer resist this role. You wake when you're needed. You sleep when summoned. Some nights bring only silence, no visions, no visitations, just the comfort of breath and linen and the steady heartbeat of a world content to rest. Other nights are rivers. A boy dreams of a crocodile wearing his sister's face. You help him speak it aloud. He begins to cry and then begins to understand. An old man whispers of falling into a pit of stars and being unafraid. You tell him that was no fall, that was a flight. And once a woman dreams of the flood returning, not water, but voices rising until she drowns in names. You write each name down, fold the list into a scrap of cloth, bury it beneath the tamarisk tree at dawn. Quirky detail, some ancient Egyptian dream guides advised burying overflow dreams, visions too full, too chaotic to return them to the earth, to ground them. This practice was called Netek Hetep, smoothing the chaos, a sacred letting go. You've begun to do this for others, not just interpreting, but helping them release. Some nights you don't dream at all. Instead, you wake in the dreams of others. You step into their temples, their deserts, their storm-tossed boats. You speak or you simply stand. Sometimes they recognize you, sometimes not, but you always leave something behind, a scent, a word, a sense of calm. And when you return to your own body, you feel lighter, as if you carried fear out with you and left peace in its place. You no longer keep the mirror by your bed. It now rests in the temple beside a lamp that never goes out. People look into it when they feel lost. Some see their own eyes, others something else entirely. You still keep the reed. It is worn smooth now, ink stained, bent slightly, where your fingers hold it each night. You don't write with it anymore. You simply hold it, a reminder of where this began, of that first dream, of the whisper that said, "You're dreaming well." You've since learned that wasn't a compliment. It was a call, and you answered. Now when people in the village dream of water, of boats of stars, they come to you, not to be told what it means, but to remember what they already know. You are no longer the dreamer. You are the echo. You are the pause before someone understands. And in this quiet role, this nightly ferrying across the invisible Nile, you found something few Egyptians ever did in life or death. Stillness. It's nearly the festival of Koyak now. The days grow shorter, the air cooler. The villagers prepare their offerings, bundles of grain, tiny Osiris effigies wrapped in green linen, the scent of fresh-cut reeds clinging to every surface. At night, torches line the streets. Processions hum with soft chants. Even the dogs seem to bark with reverence. You walk among them quietly, not leading, not hiding, just present. You nod to the priests who no longer try to correct your rituals. You smile at the children who mimic your gestures when they pretend to guide dreams. You sit with the elders who no longer ask what their visions mean, but only whether you've had one of your own. Because in times like these, transitional tender, the line between the living and the dead feels especially thin. And for the Egyptians, the festival of Koyak was never just about mourning. It was a celebration of regrowth, of sleep giving birth to life again. The myth of Osiris. The god who died was scattered and reborn is told and retold. His body cut into pieces, his soul fragmented, his wife Isis gathering the pieces like seeds, reassembling him, breathing him back into eternity. And in the temples, as the story is recited aloud, you recognize the pattern. This is what dreams do. They break you apart. They show you the fragments. And if you're lucky or guided, they help you put yourself back together again. You dream differently now. Less vision, more feeling. Less message, more memory. You dream of your grandfather sometimes, but no longer as a guide. He's simply there, sitting beside you. Quiet, smiling, you dream of the first night you used your headrest, not from above, but from the eyes of the stone itself. Watching your younger self, Brother Murmur, turn, so fragile, so eager. You dream of being the Nile itself, carrying people dreams time. Quirky detail during Koyak. People sometimes slept beside symbolic Osiris gardens, small wooden boxes filled with sprouting grain. They believed that sleeping near life, as it pushed through soil, would encourage their own rebirth. Some even claimed the smell of wet barley could pull forgotten dreams to the surface. You try this once, a simple wooden tray, a handful of barley. You wake with damp fingers and the memory of laughter you haven't heard in years. You keep the tray beside your bed. That night, a girl no more than 5 runs up to you during a temple gathering. She says, "I dreamed I was a boat." You kneel. "Did you float?" "No," she grins. "I flew." You nod. That happens sometimes. You don't explain. You don't need to. She already knows. The villagers begin placing tiny Osiris figures in their fields, now symbols of renewal, of the god who never truly dies. And one morning you find a small figurine placed on your doorstep. It isn't Osiris. It's you, carved in soft wood, holding a reed. You don't ask who left it. You simply carry it inside, place it beside the mirror, and smile, because now the line between dream and myth has blurred, and perhaps it always was. The festival ends, but its echoes linger. The scent of damp barley still clings to your robes. The chants hum faintly in your ears, even in silence. And the figurine, the little dreamer carved in your likeness, remains by the mirror as if it's always belonged there. You've become something of a fixture now. People no longer ask, "Who is he?" They ask, "Has he slept yet? Or did he see anything last night?" You don't always answer, not because you're withholding, but because dreams are shifting now, becoming quieter, more subtle, less like messages shouted from across a great river, more like ripples spreading from a single drop. You sleep less deeply, but more fully. Sometimes you dream as others, their worries, their longings. You wake with emotions that aren't yours, grief like ash or joy that makes your breath catch. You've learned to hold them gently, to pass them back like folded linens returned to their owner. No need to keep what was never yours. Other times you dream with others. Side by side, two souls dreaming the same landscape, a shared courtyard, a flooded temple, a fig tree blooming from a crack in stone. You've met children this way, ones you'd never spoken to in the waking world, who later waved to you in the street with knowing eyes. And once you dreamed alongside a priest. He stood in a pool of oil, his mouth filled with honey, unable to speak. You touched his shoulder. He wept. When you woke, he was waiting outside the temple. "I know now," he said. "I was afraid to let go." You didn't ask of what. You didn't need to. Quirky detail, some Egyptian texts speak of sacred duets, paired dreams between two individuals that served as healing confirmation or initiation. Such occurrences were recorded on temple walls in only the briefest of lines, not explained, just acknowledged as if the truth of them was too large for words. Historians debate whether these stories are literal or literary, but when you stand in your courtyard under the stars and feel another soul dreaming beside you hundreds of steps away, you stop debating. You begin to wonder if even death is just one long shared dream. You revisit the mirror again, more now out of ritual than curiosity. It's always the same reflection, yours, and something behind you soft and shifting like memory. The reed still rests by your bed, but you haven't held it in days. You've stopped needing tools. You are the tool. That evening, someone asks if you're tired. You say no, and you mean it. Because carrying dreams doesn't weigh you down. It teaches you how to float, how to glide through the lives of others without disrupting their waters, how to drop a word, a breath, a pause and watch the meaning ripple outward. And in your own sleep, you now dream of the simplest thing: a hut, a mat, a quiet room where people come not to be healed, but to be heard. They lie down, they close their eyes, and you sit beside them, not guiding, not interpreting, just being. And in the dream, as one breathes deeply and begins to weep, another speaks softly. Thank you. I didn't know my dreams mattered. You wake with that line still echoing. You look out at the village, at the reeds swaying by the river, at the temple bathed in moonlight, and you say it aloud to no one in particular. They always did. Tonight everything is still. The air is cool, brushed with the scent of the drying Nile. The stars pulse slowly overhead, no longer silent watchers, but familiar companions. The temple bells have long since quieted, and even the dogs have chosen rest over argument. It's the kind of night that doesn't demand sleep. It invites it. You lie on your mat, hands resting softly over your stomach. The reed is beside you, but you don't touch it. The mirror waits in its corner, reflecting a single shard of moonlight across the wall, and the little figurine carved in your likeness stands upright as if keeping watch. You don't expect dreams tonight, but that doesn't mean you won't receive one. You close your eyes, not searching, not asking, simply allowing. And slowly, gently, the dream rises, not like a tide, not like a vision, but like a memory returning home. You are in the chamber again, the one from long ago. The jackals carved in stone are still here, but now they face outward, guarding something sacred. Not you, within you. There's no boat this time, no river, no temple ceiling or painted stars. Just you, standing in a field of tall papyrus, the wind folding the stalks gently around your body like an embrace. The sky is not night, not day, just light, warm and soft and full. And in this moment, you feel it. You've become what you were always meant to be. Not a priest, not a prophet, not even a ferryman, but a dream returned to its source. All the visions you carried, all the souls you comforted, all the nights you walked in silence, holding fear in one hand and reassurance in the other, they have all led to this stillness, this knowing. You are not leaving the world. You are joining it fully. You open your arms to the wind, and it carries you not away, but through time, through story, through breath. And just before you vanish into that golden light, you hear the voice again, the same one from so long ago. You're dreaming well. You smile, and you believe it. Because now your breath is wind, your voice is river, your soul is rest. Wind down 300 words. And now, as you lie here in your own quiet room, your own warm bed, let everything from this story begin to fade. Let the field of papyrus dissolve into shadow. Let the jackals return to their stone watch. Let the stars return to the sky, and the mirror darken once again. Breathe in slowly, and exhale even slower. You are not in ancient Egypt anymore, but maybe, just maybe, you carry something from it now. A whisper of stillness, a memory of calm, the quiet strength of a soul that walked between dreams and daylight. Let your arms grow heavy. Let your chest rise and fall like the surface of the Nile under moonlight. Let your fingers soften. Let your thoughts slip beneath the surface, where they don't need to swim anymore. Just float. You are not being watched. You are being held by the dark, by your breath, by the silence that has followed you gently all day and now curls around your spine like a protective spell. And if any images return to you in sleep, boats, reeds, temples, or stars, know that they come in peace. They are not here to warn or worry, only to carry you, to ferry you, to let you rest. You've walked far tonight. Now it's time to lie still. Good night, dreamer. Sleep deeply, sleep gently, sleep well. 300 words. And now, as you lie here in your own quiet room, your own warm bed, let everything from this story begin to fade. Let the field of papyrus dissolve into shadow. Let the jackals return to their stone watch. Let the stars return to the sky, and the mirror darken once again. Breathe in slowly and exhale even slower. You are not in ancient Egypt anymore, but maybe, just maybe, you carry something from it now. A whisper of stillness, a memory of calm, the quiet strength of a soul that walked between dreams and daylight. Let your arms grow heavy. Let your chest rise and fall like the surface of the Nile under moonlight. Let your fingers soften. Let your thoughts slip beneath the surface where they don't need to swim anymore. Just float. You are not being watched. You are being held by the dark, by your breath, by the silence that has followed you gently all day and now curls around your spine like a protective spell. And if any images return to you in sleep boats, reeds, temples, or stars, know that they come in peace. They are not here to warn or worry, only to carry you, to ferry you, to let you rest. You've walked far tonight. Now it's time to lie still. Good night, dreamer. Sleep deeply, sleep gently, sleep well. Word count 1290 plus 300 when down is 1590.